What if being truly unforgettable has nothing to do with beauty, charm, or being perfect, and everything to do with being whole? In a world where people wear masks to be loved, the woman everyone fears losing is the one who dares to take hers off. Carl Jung didn't teach us how to be liked. He revealed how to become unforgettable by becoming deeply, unapologetically yourself. Welcome to Stoic and Still, where timeless psychology meets the soul's quiet revolution. Today's video will take you on a transformative journey into the 7 paradoxical traits of a woman so grounded, so radiant, and so real, she becomes impossible to forget. And ironically, it's not because she tries to be. In fact, she's the woman who doesn't chase. And that's exactly why no one wants to lose her. Carl Jung spent his life studying the depths of the human psyche, shadows, authenticity, the path to individuation. In this video, we'll explore how his ideas can help shape not just a strong woman, but a woman who lives so truthfully she leaves a permanent imprint on those around her. But first, take a breath. Are you ready to become someone who is remembered not for how you look, but for how deeply you live? If you feel like something powerful is awakening in you, drop a comment below. I'm ready to embody my truth. Your words might just spark something in someone else today. And if this message already resonates with your soul, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future reflections here on Stoic and Still. Let's begin this journey inward, toward power, toward presence, toward you. The first trait, the most paradoxical and yet the most powerful, is authenticity. We often hear this word so much that it begins to lose meaning. But what does it really mean to be an authentic woman in a world that constantly tries to mold you? It means you have stopped performing. You no longer live for applause. You are not living your life like a stage act curated for acceptance. You have traded your desire to be liked for a deeper commitment, the vow to never abandon yourself again. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But how many women live their entire lives in roles that were scripted by someone else? The unforgettable woman is unforgettable because she is undeniably herself, not a copy. Not a projection, not a version of someone others expect her to be. She doesn't apologize for her edges or soften her truths to fit in someone else's narrative. Think of the people you remember most in your life. They weren't necessarily the most agreeable or the most polished. They were the ones who made you feel something real. That's what authenticity does. It awakens. It's not about being loud. It's not about being rebellious. It's about being deeply rooted in who you are, so deeply, in fact, that you cannot be shaken by trends, opinions, or rejection. Jung's concept of the persona is incredibly relevant here. He believed we all create masks, the persona we wear in public to navigate society. But over time, many people mistake the mask for their true identity. They forget what they look like without it. The unforgettable woman remembers. She has peeled back the layers. She has done the shadow work. She knows that true intimacy, whether with a partner, a friend, or even herself, cannot exist behind performance. So, she sheds the need to be perfect. She allows herself to be seen. In her light, yes, but also in her mess. She allows her voice to tremble when she speaks the truth. She knows that vulnerability is not weakness, it's courage in motion. If you're listening and thinking, "That's what I want, to be fully myself again," comment below. No more masks. Let's speak that intention into existence. Let's name it so we can claim it. This kind of woman, she's rare because she's real. And that realness is magnetic. You can't quite explain it, but you feel it when she walks into the room. You sense the absence of performance. You sense presence. Authenticity also comes with boundaries. She doesn't seek validation, so she's not easily manipulated. She doesn't betray her values to gain approval. She can say no without guilt. She doesn't shrink to make others comfortable. There's a certain power in a woman who is no longer for sale emotionally. She may still be kind, warm, nurturing, but it is not a performance for acceptance. It is a genuine expression of who she is, not a strategy to be needed. Jung called this process of becoming whole individuation, the sacred unfolding of the self. And for a woman, this path is often radical because from a young age, she was told to be agreeable, to smile, to accommodate, to please. But the woman who becomes unforgettable is the one who decides to stop editing herself. She allows her wholeness to take up space. She doesn't split herself into the good girl and the wild woman. She is both, and everything in between. She contains multitudes and honors all of them. In this truth, she becomes unpredictable, not because she's unstable, but because she can no longer be confined. You can't reduce her to one version. You can't box her in with one label. She is too full of life for that. Have you ever met someone who made you feel safe simply because they were fully themselves? That's the kind of presence we're talking about here. When a woman shows up as herself, she invites others to do the same. So this trait, authenticity, is not just about being real for her sake. It's revolutionary. It liberates everyone she meets. She becomes a mirror. Not everyone is comfortable with that. Some will walk away. Some will call her too much. That's okay. She doesn't water herself down to be digestible. She lets people reveal who they are by how they respond to her truth. And that's how she builds deep, aligned connections. Because she's no longer addicted to being liked, she attracts people who love her for who she really is. That, my friend, is why authenticity is the first secret. Because it is the soil from which all the other traits will grow. You cannot radiate confidence if it's built on pretense. You cannot own your desires if you're still denying who you are. You cannot love freely if you're performing the version of yourself you think others want. And so, authenticity isn't a detail, it's the foundation. Let me ask you, do you feel like you've been living as your most authentic self? Or are there parts of you still waiting to be seen? Drop a comment. Sometimes, the act of naming what we feel is the first step toward freeing it. This is not about becoming someone new. This is about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. And when you begin to live from that place, you will no longer be easily forgotten. There's something profoundly powerful about a woman who feels deeply and doesn't apologize for it. The second trait of the woman everyone fears losing is this: emotional depth, not drama. This is not the same as being overly reactive, moody, or chaotic. This is about a woman who has the courage to feel, fully, fiercely, and freely. Carl Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." He understood that our emotions, especially the uncomfortable ones, are not enemies. They are signals, they are messengers, they are the raw material of transformation. In a world that encourages detachment, distractions, and emotional numbing, the woman who dares to feel becomes rare. She becomes sacred. We are taught from a young age that emotions, especially for women, are dangerous when too strong. Don't be too much. Don't cry. Don't show them you care. Don't let your heart speak too loudly. And so, many women suppress the very thing that makes them magnetic, their emotional vibrancy. But the unforgettable woman, she doesn't suppress. She doesn't dilute her joy to make others comfortable. She doesn't hide her sadness behind fake smiles. She doesn't pretend indifference when her heart is stirred. She feels, and that's exactly what makes her unforgettable. Jung's theory of the anima and animus, the feminine and masculine energies within each of us, teaches us something vital here. A woman who is emotionally grounded is not someone ruled by her feelings. She is someone who has integrated her emotional and rational aspects. She understands that feeling is not weakness, it's wisdom. Her emotional depth allows her to respond, not react. To stay soft, but not be broken. To stay open, but not be naive. When she loves, she doesn't love for attention. She loves with intention. She doesn't give her emotions to be saved. She shares them because she has something real to offer. Emotional depth is not chaotic. It is containment without suppression. It is a woman who can cry without shame and then rise with clarity. It is someone who has learned how to ride the waves of her emotions without drowning in them. You see, the unforgettable woman knows that emotions are energy, and energy must move. So she lets her feelings move through her. She doesn't bottle them up, only to explode later. She doesn't weaponize them to manipulate. She doesn't perform them for sympathy. She owns them. She says, "This is how I feel, and I trust myself to hold that truth." When you're with her, you feel safe to feel too, not because she fixes you, but because her presence gives you permission to be real. That kind of emotional safety, it's rare, it's transformative, it's healing. Let me ask you, how often do you allow yourself to feel without filters? How often do you give yourself the space to just sit with your joy or your sorrow without rushing to fix it? If you resonate with this, drop a comment below. I allow myself to feel. Say it out loud. Write it down. Let your emotional world know you're listening. Because when a woman feels deeply, she lives deeply. Her love is layered. Her sadness carries insight. Her joy is contagious. She doesn't skim the surface of life. She dives into the depths, and that's where her power lies. Emotional depth also means she sets boundaries. She doesn't allow her feelings to justify poor behavior. She doesn't get lost in emotions that don't serve her. She's not a prisoner of her pain. She is a student of it. Jung said that the shadow, those hidden parts of ourselves, often contain the very power we seek. And emotional depth is what allows the unforgettable woman to go into that shadow and retrieve her gold. She is not afraid of the dark. She doesn't live in pursuit. She lives in intention, and that intention is magnetic. She knows that when you're chasing, you're signaling to the world that what you want is outside of you. But when you align, you radiate. You become the flame, not the moth. Let's be clear. This woman is not cold. She's not playing hard to get. She's not unavailable. In fact, she's fully present, deeply warm, and beautifully open, but only to what is true. She doesn't chase because she doesn't believe love should feel like pursuit. It should feel like mutual recognition. She doesn't chase success either. She builds herself, her integrity, her creativity, her energy, and lets success find its way to her. Even friendships, she doesn't force bonds. She lets them grow organically. She knows that the right people feel like home, not like work. Carl Jung reminded us that the outer world is often a reflection of our inner world, and this woman has done the work to reflect abundance, not lack. She knows how to hold space for desire without attachment. She can want something deeply, but still sleep peacefully without it, because she doesn't believe her happiness hangs on any one outcome. This makes her presence light, but not empty. She feels free, not disconnected. She is intentional, not forceful. The paradox is this: the less she tries to impress, the more impressive she becomes. The less she clings, the more unforgettable she becomes. And people feel this. They can sense that she's not trying to prove anything. She's not competing. She's simply grounded in her essence. And when someone doesn't need you, but chooses you, that's powerful. It's no longer about being the loudest in the room. It's about having the clearest signal. Her clarity becomes her call. Her presence becomes her message. She doesn't rush. She doesn't beg. She doesn't chase. She becomes. And in becoming, she draws in everything aligned with who she really is. That's the third secret. There's a radiant kind of beauty that doesn't come from light alone, but from a woman who has made peace with her darkness. The fourth trait of the woman no one wants to lose is this: she embraces her shadows. Carl Jung taught us that what we reject doesn't disappear. It hides in the unconscious, shaping us in ways we don't realize. He called it the shadow, the unseen self we deny, suppress, or feel ashamed of. Most people spend their lives avoiding their shadow, but not her. She turns toward it. She doesn't run from her past. She doesn't pretend she has it all together. She knows her power lies not in her perfection, but in her integration. You see, the unforgettable woman doesn't just show you her light. She doesn't need to be flawless to be loved. She invites you to witness all of her confidence and her doubt, her calm and her chaos, her laughter and her rage. Because she's not ashamed of being human, and that makes her magnetic. Why? Because in a world full of masks, authenticity is rebellion. She doesn't suppress what hurts her. She doesn't pretend to be positive all the time. She allows the uncomfortable to live alongside the beautiful, and that gives her a kind of depth that others can feel. Jung believed that confronting the shadow was essential to true self-awareness. The woman who does this work doesn't collapse under the weight of who she once was. She alchemizes it. She uses it as fuel for growth. She's honest about her pain, not because she wants sympathy, but because she understands that the only way to transcend suffering is to face it. She may have once been angry, insecure, jealous, broken, but she didn't stop there. She examined the roots. She asked the hard questions. She forgave herself. And then she grew. That growth, it radiates. It's not loud. It doesn't demand attention, but it's there, in her voice, her stillness, her eyes. Let me ask you, what parts of yourself have you been hiding? What parts have you judged as too much, too messy, too dark? If you're ready to bring them back into the light, comment below. I accept all of me, because healing doesn't start with changing who you are. It starts with accepting who you've always been. The woman no one wants to lose knows how to hold her own contradictions. She can be gentle and fierce. She can be composed and passionate. She can be nurturing and wild. She's not trying to be one thing. She's trying to be whole. And because of this, she doesn't project her wounds onto others. She doesn't make others responsible for her healing. She owns her story, every chapter of it. That ownership? It's rare, it's powerful, it's unforgettable. You feel it when you're with her. She doesn't speak from theory, she speaks from experience. She doesn't try to fix you, she sees you. She doesn't pretend life is perfect, she makes peace with its messiness. And because she's done the work, you feel safe doing it too. Her energy says, come as you are, not come only if you're polished. Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The woman who has embraced her shadows has broken this spell. She no longer repeats patterns blindly. She no longer attracts chaos just to feel alive. She no longer fears solitude, silence, or stillness. She uses them to see more clearly. She understands that life will always bring challenges, but she meets them with inner strength, not denial. She doesn't pretend to be unaffected. She just knows how to navigate the storm. And when you see someone who's made it through their own darkness without losing their light, it moves something in you. You realize this is not just a woman, she is a force, and yet she is deeply human. She can sit with her pain without drowning in it. She can name her wounds without becoming them. She can hold space for grief without closing her heart. Because she has integrated the rejected parts of herself, she becomes someone who can love you beyond your flaws. Because she's loved herself through hers. This kind of woman doesn't expect perfection from others, but she expects presence. She expects honesty, because that's what she brings. She's not interested in fairy tales. She's here for realness. And it shows in her relationships, in her leadership, in her love. She's not afraid to say, "This hurt me." She's also not afraid to say, "But I've healed from it." She has scars, not because she's weak, but because she's walked through fire and came out wiser, stronger, softer. And that, perhaps, is her greatest beauty. Because it's not the kind of beauty you forget. It's the kind that reminds you what's possible. So, when you see a woman who's comfortable with her darkness, don't look away. She's the one who will never manipulate you. She's the one who won't play pretend. She's the one who has nothing to prove, because she's already proven everything to herself. She has become the kind of woman who can stand alone, yet never feels lonely. And that is what makes her unforgettable. There's a difference between being high maintenance and having high standards. The unforgettable woman doesn't demand the world from others. She demands it from herself first. And that's the fifth secret. She has standards that cannot be negotiated. You see, she's not the kind of woman who's impressed by surface-level attention. She's not flattered by breadcrumbs of affection. She's not seduced by potential. She looks at reality, clearly, and if something doesn't meet her standard, she doesn't lower the bar. She walks away. This is not arrogance, it's self-respect. Her standards are not about perfection, they're about alignment. Alignment with her values, alignment with her energy, alignment with where she's headed, not where she used to be, because she knows everything you allow teaches others how to treat you, and she refuses to teach the wrong lesson. That's why she doesn't settle. She doesn't settle for inconsistent love. She doesn't settle for half-effort friendships. She doesn't settle for spaces where she has to shrink to fit in. And the truth is, people notice. Some admire it, some are intimidated by it, but no one forgets it. Let's pause here. Have you ever tolerated less than you deserved just to avoid being alone? If this has been your story, it's not too late to rewrite it. Drop a comment below. I'm raising my standards. Because when you do, life rises to meet you. The unforgettable woman isn't aggressive about her standards. She simply lives by them. If someone disrespects her time, she doesn't beg them to stay. She just stops making time for them. If someone gives her mixed signals, she doesn't chase clarity. She chooses peace. If someone doesn't value her presence, she removes her presence. And that creates a kind of quiet power. She doesn't have to scream her worth. She embodies it. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And becoming who you truly are means refusing to pretend you're okay with less than you need. It means no longer shrinking your truth to protect someone else's ego. It means recognizing that what you tolerate becomes what you attract." This woman, she doesn't attract love that's confused. She doesn't attract situations that drain her. She doesn't attract partners who need to be convinced of her value, because her standards act as a filter. Not everyone can pass through. And that's exactly the point. She would rather be alone with peace than together in chaos. She would rather wait for the real thing than entertain the almost right one. And that waiting, it's not weakness, it's wisdom. You can feel her energy in the way she walks into a room. There's no desperation, no seeking validation, only presence. She's not waiting for someone to give her worth. She brings her worth with her, and because of this, she elevates the room without trying. People rise in her presence because she expects more. Not more money or fame or flash, more depth, more honesty, more emotional maturity. She doesn't want you to impress her. She wants you to be real with her. She wants your presence, not your performance. That's why when someone truly meets her standard, they feel honored. Not because she made them jump through hoops, but because her energy made them realize they could rise higher. These standards protect her peace. They protect her time. They protect her energy. They protect her purpose. And here's the most powerful part. She doesn't just have high standards for others. She has them for herself. She disciplines her mind. She honors her boundaries. She checks her intentions. She reflects when triggered. She takes responsibility when needed. Because she knows standards without self-accountability are just hypocrisy. Jung believed that wholeness required responsibility, and the unforgettable woman takes responsibility for her life by choosing what she allows in it. She is not bitter, she is not guarded, she is not closed, she is clear. And that clarity, it makes her unforgettable. She's the kind of woman you don't just date, you grow with. The kind of woman who won't settle for almost. The kind who doesn't play games because she values time. The kind who doesn't try to convince anyone to choose her because she's already chosen herself. And that is the power of a woman with non-negotiable standards. There's something magnetic about a woman who knows her power and doesn't need to prove it. She doesn't dominate the room with noise. She influences it with presence. This is the sixth secret. She knows her power and uses it with grace. She's the kind of woman who can silence a room without raising her voice, because her power doesn't scream, it resonates. She doesn't manipulate, she doesn't threaten, she doesn't beg. She simply exists, fully, clearly, and with deep self-awareness. You feel her energy not because it's loud, but because it's anchored. Her strength is quiet, but undeniable. She doesn't compete with anyone because she's not in competition. She's in alignment. Her power comes from knowing who she is, what she values, what she will and will not accept. And from that place of clarity, she makes every choice. She doesn't need to control people. She influences them by being the example. Let's pause for a moment. Have you ever been around someone who made you feel stronger just by being in their presence? That's what this kind of woman does, not because she tells others what to do, but because she shows what's possible. She holds her boundaries with compassion. She speaks with conviction, but never cruelty. She can disagree without disrespecting. She can walk away without causing drama. That's power, not the power to dominate, but the power to walk in truth, even when it's hard. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The unforgettable woman has done that inner work. She has met the parts of herself that used to sabotage her. She has faced the insecurities, the wounds, the shadows, and instead of running from them, she integrated them. That's where her grace comes from. She doesn't shame others because she no longer shames herself. She doesn't project her wounds onto others because she's taken responsibility for healing them. She knows what it means to be broken, and she knows what it takes to rebuild. That's why she walks with empathy, with gentleness, but never with weakness. She can be soft and firm at the same time. She can nurture and protect. She can forgive and still enforce her boundaries. She doesn't need to prove her worth. She already lives it. This woman, she turns pain into purpose. She turns silence into wisdom. She turns endings into beginnings. She's been through fires that could have consumed her, but she walked out with flames in her eyes and peace in her heart. And now she doesn't need attention. She creates impact. She doesn't need validation. She offers value. She doesn't chase influence. She embodies it. People feel her when she enters a space. They listen when she speaks. Not because she demands it, but because her energy speaks louder than words. She doesn't confuse humility with hiding. She can say thank you when complimented. She can accept love without doubting it. She can shine without guilt. That's grace. It's not shrinking to make others comfortable. It's expanding so that others feel permission to do the same. She shows other women that power and kindness can live in the same breath, that being feminine doesn't mean being fragile, that strength can be elegant, and when she loves fiercely. But she never loses herself in the process. She knows that love without boundaries becomes self-abandonment, so she loves with clarity. She supports without sacrificing herself. She gives without depletion. She listens without losing her own voice. This balance, this grace, This grounded power is why she's unforgettable. Not because she tries to be, but because she's too authentic to ignore. The final and most powerful secret: she chooses herself. Not once, not just when things fall apart, but every single day. She doesn't wait for someone to validate her worth. She doesn't hope that love will fix what she hasn't healed. She becomes the source of the love she once begged for. This is the seventh and final secret. She chooses herself, again and again. At first glance, it may sound selfish, but in truth, it is the foundation of every great love, every great life, every great legacy. She doesn't choose herself because she thinks she's better than others. She chooses herself because she finally realized that no one else can live her life but her. She no longer betrays her truth to make someone else comfortable. She no longer dims her light to keep someone else from feeling insecure. She no longer says yes when her heart screams no. She no longer stays in places that drain her just to be polite. And she doesn't apologize for growing, because growth is not abandonment. It is alignment. Let me ask you this. Have you ever made yourself small just to be accepted? If so, remember, you don't have to keep shrinking. You can expand. You can take up space. You can choose yourself today. Leave a comment. I choose myself. Let it be a declaration. Let it be a new beginning. Because when this woman chooses herself, everything changes. She attracts relationships that honor her, opportunities that challenge her, people who meet her where she is, not who she pretends to be. She stops chasing people who don't see her. She stops explaining herself to those who don't want to understand. She walks away, not with anger, but with self-respect. She doesn't need closure from others. She gives it to herself. And in doing so, she becomes unshakable. Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your own heart." Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. This woman has awakened. She no longer seeks rescue because she rescued herself. She no longer waits to be chosen because she already chose herself. That's why she's unforgettable. That's why she's magnetic. That's why she's free. She's not perfect. She's real. She's not fearless. She's courageous. She's not always certain, but she trusts herself enough to move anyway. She doesn't run from the mirror. She meets her reflection with love, even when it's messy, even when it's raw, even when she doesn't recognize the woman staring back. She stays. She holds space. She breathes through the discomfort. And in those quiet moments, she becomes more of herself. Not the version others want, not the mask she wore for years, but her true self, unfiltered, unedited, undeniably whole. When a woman chooses herself, she reclaims her power. She rewrites her story. She redefines what love, success, and joy mean on her own terms. And those who are meant to walk beside her, they won't ask her to shrink. They won't fear her strength. They'll celebrate her. Because the woman who chooses herself is not a threat. She's a mirror. She reflects what's possible when we stop abandoning ourselves. She reminds us that we are not too much. We are just not meant for people who settle for too little. So, choose yourself. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Because that choice, over and over again, is the beginning of everything you're searching for.